back at it. That we the people, the new world order of greatness. And I was thinking, man, Israel, United States, and Mexico should become one country. I don't care if the quote unquote Jewish people rule it, run it, but if they have a good plan, let's all do it. I really know there's good people and bad people in all religions. When you put a box that can be split up, there's bad people in each box. There's jails in Israel. There's that have Israelis in them, I'm sure, like Israelis that do other Israelis, Jewish people that do Jewish people wrong. There's Christians that do Christians wrong. There's Muslims that do Muslims wrong. You get my point, right? There's rabbis that screw kids. There's pastors, I guess, Christians, or there's sheiks, I guess you call them, Muslims that do kids wrong, But I know there's great Jews and there's great Christians and there's great Muslims, and all those borders are being crossed and crisscrossed, and it's I think we're already in a melting pot, and in the military, you cross those borders as a team and create a team as early as 18 and even 17. And not enough people go through that. But Israel does have mandatory, military requirement, right? So they all go through that, and they all have an experience that they bonds them through that. And then so from there you have a team that has gone through at least boot camp, the foundations of defense, self-defense, unity through that. What culture would never see that as valuable? That it wanted to have unity, right? I mean, go a little farther at that. I was thinking, why don't we have an education system that gives us the foundations? Each individual can farm, knows how to build something, build houses, build structures, knows how to team up and defend their territory, knowing that historically other tribes will come in and try to take your territory, right? Why wouldn't that be the foundations? And from there, you can, once you have your food and your shelter and things taken care of, and you have these skill sets, right? And you can functionally bring something to the table. Then you can learn exotic, unique thoughts, right? Sexual, 4-year degrees in sexuality or whatever else, something like that. But why would you need to think but don't need to have any of these foundational skills, right? Because in America, we're just pawning off that stuff, as they don't like to really think about it, to people coming from Mexico or somewhere that, work on these farms in California, right? Because white people won't do it, supposedly. But that is another thing to even investigate, question, because it came up recently. The fact that white people won't do anything, we're too lazy, right? Well, the fact is that, and other people that are Americans, not just white people, right? Which again, we're gonna get away from that. Just Americans in general won't, work on farms because it's hard, right? Well, the only, well, the direct answer to that is that's absolutely stupid to say that. And there's a reason for that, because America gives you the option voluntarily to join the military. You're going to get your ass kicked. But you're not going to work on a farm. You're going to be working on something else. But you're throwing all that energy, and you could learn how to farm, right? And you wouldn't, if it was like a patriotic, thing that you thought was foundational, and young men and women would gladly learn how to farm and be on the farm. Maybe that's like the kibbutz or something. I've heard of these things. Things like this, it's like farming is something, to have pride in things that keep your community healthy, right? But if everyone's just working at Starbucks or things like that, and or there's so many other levels that you're just not really your capitalism is it's all for the money, right? You're not really having it's a bad downward spiral, right? Because we look at things just purely on the money, and even selling out or damaging our own military force, because we look at that. Someone taught us, or they budget out the military like manpower. They got to get results. They have, like, your manpower hours are counted down to every minute. Really just they're trying to squeeze that rock, right? Get returns for their investment, right? And you, the machine that puts out in the military, right? Like on a ship, right? They're which is another way to look at a ship is a Navy ship. Is I explain it to an Army guy, but essentially you're, if there's like a handgun, a weapon, any weapons. What if you lived in the weapon? Like little people were in, like living in the weapon that, you're imagine you were thinking what kind of lifestyle that would be. And you lived in the weapon, and you brought your weapon around to other places, and showed it off to other nations to let them know that we are around, and we are the biggest and best, and that was America's Navy. That is America's Navy, supposedly. I mean, it was a show of force, right? To be deployed all the time, to always have the ships around the world, right? 300, 500, and during World War II, even more than that. Now, if we're bringing the Constitution with us, which we, see we the people up there, which the 18-year-olds swear an oath to defend, and then we the people, if you're talking about these higher level things, and we brought the Constitution with us, as we're deployed, and say, hey, look what America's about, really showed them higher level consciousness of what this unity was about, and what you can do with this unity. We can create big armies, big navies, team-oriented groups that are inclusive with all the cultures, so America being the most diverse country, we would show that, look, Asia, or some other countries where there's not so much diversity, Middle East or wherever, look, we the people, which includes all the historically, there's Muslims, there's Jews, there's Christians, there's Arabs, there's Africans, descent lines, people in the American military that group up and team up and create a great team. And you should be funding that 100% as a culture, United States culture. That should be foundational, primary thing to focus on, not this other education system which teaches division or things like that, right? So teaching about, oh, you're black, you're white, you're this happened 300 years ago, and let's continue to talk about it in a way that's not even correct. I mean, to make certain people feel bad for them, and certain people, everyone feel bad about something that happened in the past, right? That we personally didn't have any involvement in, right? Here, because it's like 200 or 300 years past, right? But even in that line of thought, right, you would think if slavery is such a terrible thing, and it is, and it happened 300, 200 years ago, or we abolished it in the 1800s, I believe, right? Exact date I don't have, but there's a civil war over it, right? That the reality is that it was worth putting to bed to get that it was found out that humans do not want this to be the way we move forward, right? But why aren't we trying to shut down sex slavery that is currently happening, like trafficking, human trafficking, sex slavery, right? Like as vicious as we would any other slavery that we, got rid of, right? But right now women are being trafficked right now, and they talk about it, but they don't talk about it in the same sense of like importance of acknowledging it and or its damages and or all the things that are attributable to slavery, right? They don't want to get rid of it. They don't let's talk about slavery 300 years ago, as if it's, but they don't want to talk about slavery today, right? And how we can get rid of it in America, right? That is insane. Shows you exactly how insane things are, because they're trying to distract you in a sense with ignorance, that can't acknowledge the current status and how like sex slavery were one example, or maybe there's still slavery going on in other ways in America, right? But we got to really continue to like think, man, these are things we could do and get rid of right now, right? And use that military mindset where, hey man, we've shown that we can put all these guys and women, girls, and on one team in the military, and they become a team, and that could be the foundational education system of America, United States, we the people, right? That Constitution thing up there. We could translate that into any language. Just that preamble could be translated in any language, and it would make sense. We want to revise some of the articles and things like that, but essentially the basic structure of the human rights document, it would translate well in all the other languages around the world, right? So I think there's things we could implement, as far as our history and everything, and coming together and moving forward, America, Israel, Mexico. I mean, we could create a nation acknowledging that we just got to come together, and whatever's going to be the rulers and ruling class, like of the people, which is not always just one, culture like us and all be Jews or all Christians or Muslims, or it's going to be a mix, right, of higher intellectual people, and not all Christians and not all Muslims and not all Jews are the same, or and so it's going to definitely always be a smorgasbord of elite intellectuals, right? But they're going to put these master plans together, as they did with the Constitution. But even the history of people. I was thinking about that today. I was like, that's why I don't like. All of my name's Aaron, right? Son of Moses, right? I have Jewish ancestry. Some people say Judeo-Christian, right? Christ was Jewish. I think there's 13 tribes of Israel. Judah was a Jewish country right next to Israel, and they both went to war. Judah may have won that war. There's been assassinations on, I can't remember who is it, Disraeli, but it was, on some Jewish people assassinated their own president. There's infighting in every culture. I don't know why people are trying to win, who's gonna lead. I think it's gonna be a shared experience, but we humans, it will translate well if it will translate well if we able to translate that in other languages. Like if we come together and say, okay, what is it that foundationally keeps humans alive? It's good food and shelter and sustainability, right? Like with your neighbors and everyone else and your family. So, treating your neighbors correctly, things like this, no one really likes bullies. Israel and America have history of using their might, to win certain situations, right? But we don't have to rely on that, because I think eventually we have to learn other parts of our lives that are like, we need to learn how to share the load, right? And make compromises. And I think America needs to learn that as well, more so, is like share the compromise where you're not going to have 18-year-old kids, a select group of patriotic ones that self-identify and indenture themselves into military service, pass federal drug test, have really, highest level of standards, from ethics to drug testing to uniforms to everything, and all in the defense of the greater culture, the United States, and then 90% of people that don't join the military. That's the premise of it, right? The concept that an 18-year-old kid goes into and experiences. But why? And then you have this other part of culture, 90% that doesn't even that couldn't hold a flame to half of that, right? They don't experience it, but then they may rebel, like, or whatever it is, like. But you can see two cultures within one culture. And the solution is to have a higher standard as a culture, 100%. All right, guys, love you guys.